welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm John Jessup. Hurricane Florence is now a Category 2 storm, but it's still expected to bring catastrophic flooding to the southeast coast.
The National Weather Service warns rainfall could reach historic levels. Ben Kennedy has more.
Well, John and Jenna, Hurricane Florence is building in the Atlantic, a storm of a lifetime described by many as it inches closer to the Carolina coast. FEMA, state leaders, and President Trump are warning people to evacuate now while they still can.
Leave as soon as possible.
Time has nearly run out to leave town as Hurricane Florence bears down on the Carolina coast.
Your time is running out. The ocean is going to start rising along the coast.
I'm going a little bit further inland just to be safe.
Florence has weakened to a Category 2 hurricane, packing 110-mile-per-hour winds.
Just because the wind speeds came down, the intensity of this storm came down to a Cat 2, please do not let your guard down.
Satellite images reveal the sheer size of the storm, which is turning 500 miles wide. The monster system is set to bring storm surges and record rainfall.
This storm is a significant event.
Florence will hit, strike, and linger for up to 3 days, dumping up to 40 inches of rain.
Get out of its way. Don't play games with it. It's called Mother Nature. You never know, but we know.
Now FEMA calls the storm a Mike Tyson punch to the East Coast. People who have decided to stay ride it out despite a mandatory evacuation are being told to not ride off the storm just because it was downgraded. It's literally 1 mile an hour away from a Category 3, and the fact that this storm is going to stall carries life-threatening potential. Ben Kennedy, CBN News, Washington.
All right, thank you, Ben. You know, it's worth pointing out as well, Sandy, when she hit back in 2012, she was a Category 1.
That's right.
This is a Category 2. All right, well, Eric Rosales is in Lumberton, North Carolina. Eric, what are you seeing as the storm inches closer there?
Well, how you doing there, guys? Yeah, I'm in Lumberton, Lumberton, North Carolina. That is only about 70 miles off the coast from Myrtle Beach. And behind me is Lumberton High School and serving as a shelter. It's one of 4 shelters in the area here at Robertson County. And about 1,200 people currently right now are staying in these shelters. Many of them still remember just a few years ago Hurricane Matthew, where it left this entire area devastated. It was literally underwater, and we're joined with Leon Locklear.
Leon Locklear.
Yes, sir. And Leon, you actually are a native here of Robertson County, and talk to me a little bit about this hurricane coming here and what's on your mind.
Well, first and foremost is being safe. That's the main reason. That's the main thing. Should be on everybody's mind is just being safe and just being safe. You
lived through the previous Hurricane Matthew. Tell me about that one.
Yes, I lived through Hurricane Matthew. It was devastating, but from understanding that I get, this one is supposed to be much worse than Matthew. So we are hoping for the best.
Now, you decided to come here at the shelter and wait it out here?
No, I am waiting on some friends to get home, and so I just came to the shelter. This is my first time being at a shelter, and I just want to see what it looks like. And hey, I walked inside, and I said, told the girls, I said, it's a blessing that people or the state or whatever has a place like this for people to go to. And
that's one thing I noticed is North Carolinians, South Carolinians helping each other.
Yes. We're in dire need of help, but just help each other as best that we know how. If you see a friend in need, just do the best, try to help them out of that need, and that's a blessing right there, just to help people.
Do the hands and feet of Jesus. Well, thank you so much, Leon, and best of luck to you and your family. But again, yeah, just a number of people are here. They're decided to wait it out. Some 1,200 people are actually staying inside these shelters right now, and that's only expected to continue to grow. John, Jenna.
All right, Eric Rosales in Lumberton, North Carolina. Eric, thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Well, here in the nation's capital, as the push continues to get Judge Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court before the start of its next session in October, opponents of the president's nominee are working to prevent that confirmation from happening. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has more. Abby, what are some of the tactics being used in opposition to Kavanaugh?
Well, they are certainly fulfilling their promise to do everything they can to derail this nomination. Just a few hours ago, it came out that Senator Dianne Feinstein, the senior Democrat on the Judiciary Committee, referred a secret letter that very few people have seen to the FBI that allegedly involves an incident of possible sexual misconduct between Judge Kavanaugh and a woman when they were both in high school. Now, Feinstein has had this letter since the summer and announced an hour after a committee vote was set on Judge Kavanaugh that she was sending it to the FBI to review. The White House responded almost immediately, saying Kavanaugh has been in public service for 25 years and has been thoroughly and repeatedly vetted by the FBI because he's held many highly sensitive roles. So they believe this is just an 11th hour attempt to delay his confirmation.
Abby, this confirmation process has seemed particularly partisan. Compared to some in the past, I mean, it just doesn't seem like we've seen this before.
Yeah, no, we have not. and not even Justice Gorsuch, who came before the same people as Kavanaugh, saw this intense of a confirmation process. Yesterday, Chairman Grassley's office announced Democrats from the Judiciary Committee submitted 1,278 written questions for the record that Judge Kavanaugh has to respond to, which totals more than all prior Supreme Court nominees combined. To give you an idea of how unprecedented this number is, Justice Gorsuch had to answer 324 after his hearing not even 2 years ago, and that was a highly unusual number just a high number at the time. So this takes it to a whole new level, and even current justices like Ruth Bader Ginsburg are denouncing the hyper-partisanship around this nomination. Take a look at what she said this week.
The way it was right. The way it is wrong. But that's the way it should be. Instead of what it's become, which is a highly partisan show.
And many of the justices that are sitting on the bench right now, they were confirmed, 90-0 or 95-5. So we really have moved into some hyper-partisan times when it comes to Supreme Court nominations.
Abby, before it can get to that floor vote, any idea when the committee vote will happen?
Yes. As of now, the committee is set to vote at 1:45 p.m. next Thursday on whether or not they'll send Judge Kavanaugh to the full Senate with a favorable recommendation. And Chairman Grassley's office said today that while he has not seen the letter that we learned about, there is no plan to change the committee's consideration of Judge Kavanaugh's nomination. So we're still on track to see that vote happen next Thursday.
Abigail Robertson on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Pope Francis and the Vatican are working to address sexual abuse reports that have been plaguing the Catholic Church. Amber Strong has a look at the efforts inside the church and some tips parents can use to keep their kids safe.
That's right. Today, several American bishops traveled to the Vatican to meet with Pope Francis regarding the ongoing sex abuse issues in the church. Now, the Archbishop of Washington, Cardinal Wuerl, was not among them. However, according to a spokesperson for Wuerl, he will submit his resignation to Pope Francis in coming days. All of this comes after scrutiny over Wuerl's handling of several predatory priests during his time over the Diocese of Pittsburgh. Today, I spoke with sex abuse expert Donna Rice Hughes about the ongoing issues in the church. Hughes recently traveled to the Vatican to speak with the Pope concerning this very issue. Take a look. Donna, can you talk to us a little bit about what came of that meeting?
Absolutely. Just this past year, there was the World Congress on Defending Child Dignity in the Digital World. And we met at the Vatican and at the university there. And there were about 150 world leaders gathered. And our goal was to meet for the 4 days that we were there to look at the issues, to hear from experts, researchers, doctors, scientists, clergy, etc., on the global issue of sexual exploitation and abuse, not just in the digital world, but also in the physical world, and to develop a strategic plan for all nations to follow. And that's what we did. And that plan is ongoing, and we're looking at the role of governments, at the role of law enforcement, at the role of education, the role of research, the role of the church, and what everyone needs to be doing, because it's going to take all of us to really address these issues, but to turn the tide. And I have to say that in the Declaration of Rome that we presented out of the Congress to Pope Francis is very powerful. It's online, and I had the opportunity to actually meet the Pope. And one of the things that I said to him as I saw all of these people coming to him and asking for blessing and prayer, I said, I'm praying for you, for wisdom and for courage and for strength. And he thanked me and said, thank you, I need that. And I just want to share that with the audience, because I think at this time of great turmoil in the church, when even his papacy is being called into question in his integrity, that he and all the leadership need our prayer. I'm convinced that they are serious about dealing with these issues, but these are generational issues, and it takes a while to clean house.
Speaking of all leadership, we know from statistics that this is not solely a Catholic Church problem. It's a church problem. It's a human problem. It's a problem happening in homes across this country. What can parents look for? What are the signs that they can point out and know that something is not right with their child?
Well, the first thing that I would say is parents really need to know and understand their children, and have regular conversations with them, starting at a very early age. I mean, 3 and 4 years old, maybe even younger, about what's appropriate touch and what's not. This is very important. And then, of course, as they get older, those conversations need to continue so that they're building an atmosphere of trust, so that if anything does happen with that child that makes them feel uncomfortable, and that's what the parent needs to say, if any adult or even another child does something that makes you feel uncomfortable or touches you in one of your private areas, then you need to come to me so that that child doesn't feel shamed. And that's one of the biggest things that keeps children silent, is they feel shamed. Oftentimes the abuser, in a sense, emotionally blackmails them into silence, telling them that they've been a bad girl or a bad boy, and that they'll tell their parents or hurt their parents if they say anything. And so parents just need to be aware, too, that no child is immune, and that 30 to 40% of the sexual abuse and exploitation happens by a family member, and about 15% by someone that the family knows and trusts. And I always say you cannot detect a disguised predator.
Now, Pope Francis is also convening a larger gathering of bishops from around the globe to discuss these very issues. That meeting will take place in February of next year. Amber Strong, CBN News, Washington.
The latest on the work being done to free an American pastor imprisoned in Turkey. Welcome back. You're looking at a live look from the Frying Pan Ocean from Cape Fear in North Carolina. Coming up in a bit, we'll show you the work being done ahead of Hurricane Florence to help after the storm passes.
All right, well, new signs show the U.S. economy is booming. A recent report finds small business optimism at the highest rate in nearly 45 years. The National Federation of Independent Business says the rate jumped to 108.8 last month. The previous record was 108, set in 1983. Meanwhile, the U.S. Census Bureau is reporting middle-class income is up. Average Americans made a record high income of just over $61,000 in 2017. All right, and we apologize. We'll work on getting that interview up and going and have that for you. The American Center for Law and Justice is urging the United Nations to help free American pastor Andrew Brunson. The ACLJ made a presentation to the UN this week on his behalf. Brunson has been imprisoned in Turkey for nearly 2 years because of his Christian faith. Last month, the Turkish court denied an appeal to release the pastor. The ACLJ says Turkey is violating not only its obligations under the UN Charter, but its own constitution. Well, Pastor Brunson remains under house arrest, awaiting a hearing in October.
That's right, Jenna. Jennifer Wishon recently spoke with someone with a first-hand account of what the pastor has been facing.
A courtroom designed to make Pastor Brunson feel defeated, bogus witnesses bribed by the prosecution, and the power of forgiveness. An eyewitness takes us inside Pastor Brunson's persecution in Turkey.
The court used to be like a basketball court or some sort of sports court that has been turned into a courtroom right next to a very large prison. And way up front, there are 3 judges on a raised dais, and very low is Pastor Andrew Brunson, witnesses for the prosecution, and Pastor Brunson's lawyer. There are over 500 chairs between him and the area where observers like me and his wife are allowed to seat.
Christina Arriaga of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Liberty attended Pastor Brunson's most recent hearing. Seated beside his wife, Noreen, she watched in disbelief.
Because Pastor Brunson cannot see very well from far away, anytime he looks back towards his wife, she stands up and puts her hand over her heart so he knows he's not alone. Pastor Brunson sat there while he heard former church members, people probably that he baptized, people that he had tea with, testify against him. And the judge at one point turned to him around noontime and asked Andrew Brunson to speak for himself. And he said, "My faith teaches me to forgive, so I forgive those who just testified against me." There was a chill in the room. I know his wife, who was graceful and extremely strong, probably found it to be a natural answer, but I was stunned and moved to tears when he said that.
Why would his church members, people that he was intimate with, testify against him?
I imagine these people were under tremendous pressure to keep their jobs or feed their families. We don't know what kind of threats they were under.
Brunson has been transferred from prison to house arrest, but Arriaga fears that puts him at risk.
But he's in a terribly dangerous situation because the Brunsons are portrayed in the Turkish press as people who are against the state of Turkey, and I have great fears there's going to be an increase of incitement to violence against him, and no one will be able to stop a mob that tries to go and kill him.
Armed with sanctions and the power to withhold F-35 fighter jets Turkey wants to purchase, U.S. officials from the White House to Congress continue to pressure Turkey's President Recep Erdogan to release Brunson. His next hearing is October 12th. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News.
When we come back, how Operation Blessing is preparing to help those hardest hit by Hurricane Florence. Welcome back. A tragic incident between a Dallas police officer and a young worship leader left one person dead and a community longing for answers. Amber Strong brings us that story.
Then a little light from heaven filled my soul.
Friends of Botham John are looking to God for strength.
My heart and love.
And so, Father, in this situation, this tragic situation, we ask for justice.
While community leaders want action after a tragic shooting involving a Dallas police officer.
We long for answers, and we're demanding for justice.
Officer Amber Geiger admits to shooting John, a 26-year-old worship leader, after mistakenly entering his apartment thinking it was her own. Geiger now faces manslaughter charges in the shooting.
According to the arrest warrant, Geiger yelled verbal commands, fired 2 shots, striking John once. She then called dispatch, turned on the lights, and noticed she was in the wrong apartment.
The grand jury will be able to look at all aspects of this case, which will include anything from murder, manslaughter, or what have you.
Jessica Berry, who says she regularly sat next to John at the Dallas West Church of Christ, tells CBN News she's struggling to make sense of it all.
You can't believe that he's gone so suddenly in the way that he left this earth.
Berry credits John for helping her learn the true meaning of worship.
There wasn't a song that he sung half-heartedly. He believed in connecting with God during worship.
Barry says John would always be the first one to step up and lead. Now, she says it's her turn to step up.
The situation will not go away. It will not just become stale. Because both of them would not want that. If this happened to anyone else and both of them were still alive, he would still be talking about it.
Amber Strong, CBN News, Washington.
Such a sad story.
Yeah, it's just awful.
Yeah, well, Hurricane Florence has yet to make landfall on the Carolina coast, but Operation Blessing is already making plans to help those in the path of the storm.
That's right, Jenna. Heather Sells reports on how OB is preparing to move into the hardest hit areas as soon as Florence passes.
Disaster relief groups like Operation Blessing are positioning themselves up and down the East Coast right now, waiting to get more of a sense of where Florence will land.
We'll hold some back here in the Virginia Beach area if it's highly impacted here, and we'll pre-deploy somewhere in southeastern Virginia. We haven't chosen a place yet.
Virginia Beach-based Operation Blessing is one of a number of faith-based humanitarian groups watching Florence closely and getting ready to help those most in need. It plans to serve meals to volunteers and provide everything from emergency relief supplies to construction tools for rebuilding. Mercy Chef spent Tuesday loading 2 of its mobile kitchens, each of which can produce up to 15,000 meals a day.
That's our goal, is to be on site within 8 hours of a disaster and feed these incredibly dedicated men and women that give so much to their local communities.
Mercy Chefs is preparing to serve meals to first responders and those in shelters in its hometown area in Hampton Roads, Virginia, as well as North Carolina.
Mercy Chefs is used to running to the fight. We always run where the greatest need is. We're sort of a little back on our heels this time because the fight's coming to us.
Other faith-based groups like World Vision, Samaritan's Purse, and Convoy of Hope spent Tuesday loading supplies and sending trucks to states where Florence may hit and then unload. Some areas are getting ready for 2 feet of rain or more. The challenge right now, positioning resources in the most strategic locations. Florence is so wide, and the surge over the weekend could be so great that disaster relief groups are still waiting to make final decisions.
You want to put those folks in a place where you kind of catch the falling knife. You don't want them to be victims in the storm, but you want them to be able to get into the high impact areas as quickly as possible.
Still, all eyes are on North Carolina for now. Florence is expected to slam the coast there harder than any hurricane since 1954. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Jenna, you know, organizations like Operation Blessing and Mercy Chef, they do really great work.
It's incredible to see.
Yeah.
So necessary.
And we'll be thinking of all the people who are in the storm's path. Thanks for joining us.